Good to go. Okay. Thanks everybody for taking the time to meet with us today for the Thursday, the April 2nd Parks and Open Space Committee meeting. You have your agenda in front of you, and number one on our topic here is, I guess the City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. And we have our minutes held on March 3rd. And we have a recommendation that the minutes of the Parks and Open Space Committee meeting held on March 3rd be adopted, please.
Yeah, I'll move that.
And seconded.
Thank you. So approval of the agenda is next on our agenda, please. And as we were discussed earlier, that the business case, urban forest strategy business case, will be deferred until our next meeting, and we figure out how we're able to review this file through the format that we're now using in Zoom. And today that we'll start with a discussion on parks, washrooms, and the COVID-19 closures. And then after that, we'll go into the public art policy discussion and defining and reviewing how that would look. If everybody's okay with that, I'd like to approve that on the agenda.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Fine by me.
Okay.
Approved and seconded by Doug.
Thank you, sir. So the washrooms are a large issue for us, and I know that just recently the provincial health officer in the province of British Columbia legislated that they are an essential service. So municipal washrooms are to remain open. This agenda was put together prior to that coming down this week, but we thought we'd have a bit of a holistic discussion with everybody and maybe inform you what we're doing at this time. We are up to 3 levels of disinfecting and cleaning of our public washrooms on a daily basis. They're open somewhere in the neighborhood between 7:30 and 8:30 every morning. As our custodian gets around and opens them up and cleans them, and then they're open to the public, and then they're hit up again around 11:30 or so. They have another cleaning, and then another cleaning again, well, 4 o'clock, I guess, probably. I was just asking Warren. So we are disinfecting and trying to stay on top of them as best we can. So as you know, we have Springwood, Foster Park, and Community Park washrooms open at this time. I guess with that said, the Trevor Provincial Park has been closed to vehicle traffic. It is now foot traffic and or by bicycle. They were noticing that there was a lot of issues with social distancing within the park space, and so they closed it. And we've noticed an increase in the amount of people that are coming to our community park as a result. And I know you've seen some of the stuff of the heart-to-heart that came forward from the park staffs themselves, came up with that idea. Social distancing. We're putting out as much information as we can through signage within the parks about social distancing. And I'm just curious if we can just having a conversation around how that looks to you folks. If you've had an opportunity to attend any of park sites, and specifically Community Park, and what you've been noticing with the amount of people, or the just open for discussion.
Well, a question I have regarding the washrooms, do we have any idea how much the washrooms are being used, if they're being used at all? 3 cleanings, it's nice to hear that they're being cleaned frequently. I'd be surprised if people are heavily relying on the washrooms, considering what's going on right now. I know for myself, I'm very aware that if I'm going to go out in public, I'm not going to be depending on a public washroom as where I'd want to go. Do we see them being used much?
I'll maybe defer to Warren, but I will say I am under the awareness that the community park washrooms are still quite heavily used. We still are seeing quite a large contingent of park users walking the waterfront, you know, spending time in the outdoors, which is good and which we want to encourage. But we are noticing they are being used, yes, absolutely. And Foster Park and Springwood, maybe not as much. You know, with the playground closed at Foster Park, with you know, the sports fields closed down and the school out, tennis courts closed at Springwood, we're not seeing that usage. I think there is some. Maybe Warren can attest to that.
Yeah, certainly the usage at Foster Park has been reduced. It's still getting some usage. Springwood Park is really low with the school and everything else being closed. The washrooms at the beach are still being used quite heavily. People are lining up while staff are cleaning them, for instance. There's the group washrooms, the men's and the women's, that have the multiple stalls are if you go in to clean them, there's multiple people in there at once. So it's being good constant use. Did have a call actually just before I got here from somebody concerned about how busy the community park was, and questioning about gates, considering the BC Park closed their gates. So you know, just directed them to call administration actually. But we are getting some comments towards that effect.
Is there signage at the park, or sorry, at the washrooms, like mentioning how it should only be used for one person at a time, or that it's for emergency use only rather than just day use type thing?
Go ahead.
There's signage on the doors in respect to maintaining a 2-meter distance from each other, to touch the fixtures as little as possible, and that they shouldn't be used if the person is sick already. We don't have signage saying one person at a time in the washroom. We do have an option that we've been discussing in closing down the multi-use washrooms and opening up the single-use universal washrooms. So in the beach washroom building, there's 3 universal washrooms, single-use, and then the 2 large washrooms. At this point, because we were coming out of the winter, our typical practice is to close down 2 of the universal washrooms, just so there's not as much volume of cleaning. So we could open up 2 more universal washrooms and possibly looking at closing the larger gang washrooms. So.
Yeah, that's something that I would think would be a good idea if that issue of people using the group washrooms at the same time. It's not a great situation if people are going to be in close quarters together. So if a single-use washroom is available, I don't think we need to have all the facilities there. Still, then it means that if people need to use the washroom, if there's an emergency, they're able to do so, because I do think that's an important aspect to be able to provide. But yeah, I definitely would support the single-use washrooms being the only ones remained open.
Now, would we, Amanda, maybe would that be a recommendation that the committee would make towards council to advise staff to go that route? It is a question that I had for Kiva, that through our conversations we're kind of seeing, we're going, you know, it'd make it easier for staff to clean, it's safer for the public, it's safer, as you said, Adam, you know, but I think that's probably our best case, is that we would come forward with a recommendation that, given from what staff are noticing and given what we're observing, that perhaps this is the best way to go forward, is that we're going to limit the amount of people that can utilize these facilities at once.
I'm not sure on that from what Warren already said here, Guy, because the thing is that the people are saying that they're already having to line up for the washrooms in the community park. Are we suggesting that we're actually closing down a couple of those stalls? Because the thing is that if they're already lining up right now, I'm not in favor of doing a lockdown, because the thing is that when these people got to go, they got to go, and there is no alternative. I can comment too about the gang washrooms and so forth. Friends of mine who are at the airport and so forth, I said, how are the washrooms, knowing what we're going through here, how are the washrooms at the airport and the ferries going, type of thing, BC ferries, the larger terminals that are still taking people? And they say no changes except for the fact that there are signage up anyways and saying about keeping the distancing. I recognize that it is going to be difficult once you get in there, but the realization is that if we don't have enough stalls down there, then we're going to create a far bigger problem than the fact that somebody might accidentally, go past that 2-meter distancing. So I hear what you're saying about Springwood and Foster Park as well. Would it be better at this point anyways to maybe just go to your usual policy is just single cleaning at Foster and Springwood? Normally, why could we go back to a single cleaning on Foster Springwood and then concentrate on the community parks and keeping it, just 3 times a day seems adequate. And but as I say, I'm just really not I don't want to shut down stalls, and it's all in reflection to the BC Park shutting down. Trevor has put a strain on our community park. I have also contacted BC Parks and Department of Health as well to say that was a really poor decision, and because I know many people that have been using Trevor as a mental health escape anyways, and for BC Parks to suggest that there's a problem with distancing and so forth, I'm sorry, but it's like no more than we have a problem in the parks, in our own parks. So the thing is that Trevor actually has way more acreage, way more space. I live by there, so I walk through Trevor Park type of thing, and we'll go for a walk up and down. Since the campground's closed, we'll go for a walk up and down the streets. They're plenty wide enough. They're like 14 feet wide. So the thing is, there's lots of room for people to get out there and walk everything. Yes, albeit the trails could be a problem if you're walking somebody else. But the thing is that, signage up in the parks to say that the trails are closed, but yeah, you're free to go and walk at this 10 acres of beach out there, as well as on the roads inside the campground. There's lots of space. So I'm not happy with that decision. It's going to be one of those things that we learned anyways and we'll fix afterwards. So if it ever happened again, but the thing is that I think in this particular case, the pressure is going to be put on Parksville. We got to keep as many washrooms open in the community park as possible.
And I like your idea, Doug, of perhaps we'll monitor and we can reduce the amount of cleanings in some of the outer parks, washrooms at facilities that we have. That's a good idea, because it's perhaps maybe not a waste of resources, but we could better allocate our time. We definitely don't want to shut them or close them. There's persons, experiencing homelessness or, others that utilize these facilities that we need to be cognizant of for sure. I don't know, and echoing on Warren's comment of, I don't know if people are lining up as much perhaps as we see here, a couple people during when they're closed and people are barging through the closed, like when the custodians got it closed. So I hope they're not. I visit quite frequently down to CP. I'm there at least once a day, if not twice, just to keep my eyes on what's going on. And I see that it's definitely reduced, I think, than from what it was, 3 weeks ago, before measures were put in place. How many people are
And
They're back.
we lost the audio on Warren. Actually, Warren's gone completely now.
No, he's back now for me. I got everybody.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay.
You're on the screen.
Just the fact that once one person uses a washroom, it's no longer considered clean. So we have signage up saying that the washrooms are being cleaned frequently, which is, I feel, a stretch at 3 times a day. So it's a matter of ensuring that the facility is clean for
Well,
to think that we have to provide, 8 stalls because there's so many people and they're coming to our parks because Rathtrevor's closed. I don't think that we should have that burden of responsibility that we're providing washrooms for crowds of people. I think that there's a bigger underlying problem, which is the crowds of people then, or that many people. There is a lot of space at the parks. When I've gone down there, I haven't seen any issue with people walking too close, even though if you were to take a picture of the area, there might be a fair amount of people, but everyone's keeping their distance. But I think that if there's going to be a kind of spread or kind of concern with the gang washroom, the group washrooms there, I think taking an approach of like having them for emergency use, which would mean then having some available, but not all of them.
do we take into consideration the demographics as well that we're dealing with, and some, I guess, some older folks that are frequently, quite often down at the park, maybe don't have, they're compromised in some way or another and may need the use of facilities more often than some other people?
I get that as well. I know it's, same thing like with having children down there, having seniors down there. The way I see it though is we should not be going so far from home where you can't utilize a washroom. Like these aren't regular times where we can go and plan our days and go have picnics and being out for a long amount of time. If you can't last more than half hour without going to the washroom, we shouldn't be going more than half hour away from your home. And it should only be in those circumstances where, hey, I thought I was going to be able to make it, but coffee I drank was really going through me, or I didn't plan things well. In that kind of situation, I think then you would definitely a washroom available is good, but there is some onus and responsibility on people going out to be prepared. We should be treating our lives like the washrooms aren't available.
I personally, I disagree with that. I don't think that's fair. Only for the fact that these people, like you say, if there's, they're going out for a half-hour trip or something like that, some of them don't live close enough to the washroom or to the park type of thing that it's going to take 20 minutes or whatever to go there. And I know some people, and we won't mention any names, but there's some people that need to go more frequently than that. And it's just not fair to say if you can last half an hour, you can't go to the park, because that's taken away everybody's rights and freedoms, and just like many of these other emergency times have done. But at the same time, when you have to go, you have to go. And the thing is that this is not sometimes that's planned for a lot of individuals. I know, anyways, I won't go into details, but anyways, I have a son-in-law, anyways, and he's got a colostomy. Anyways, and so the thing is that, so he, when his bag fills, he has to empty it immediately, and he has no idea when that's going to happen. And you won't until you're in that group. There's a lot of people walking around with that right now. So the thing is that there's a lot of people that have so many issues, as Guy said. So I think it's on us to say that not say this is for emergency use only. I think I believe we should do our best to keep the washrooms open. As many as we can for as long as we can. That's our job.
And I think that's what's been mandated to us as well, is that they're being considered essential, that the onus is on us to keep them open and keep them clean as best we can. And I guess the discussion being now whether we have the multiple stall available, and maybe some other let's say other regions or other municipalities or other agencies, they may not have that option. They just have single-use stalls, and we're fortunate enough that we're able to provide that. I concur at this time that we should be keeping that. Warren, do you have anything you'd like to add on this?
Just, I guess just that the concern at this point isn't, the concern at this point is spreading the virus, and the multi-use washroom facility, the gang washrooms, are more likely to spread virus than the other ones, I would say, because there's people in there at the same time. That would be my main concern. If we opened up the 2 universal washrooms that are closed at this time, so there would be 3 total, and then close the multi-use washrooms, there would be an impact on facilities available, but there still is three facilities, individual facilities there in that building available for use. So
is that three male, three female? Or are they universal?
no, they're the universal washrooms, so they would be for any use.
Well, I think we're always going to run into, there's peak times at the community park, we know it type of thing, and you can tell peak times, you know, you could almost set your watch to it. So if at those peak times that people have to line up, then that's the way it is. Maybe they'll learn that maybe not go at a peak time, then they won't have to line up at the washroom. So I think that's fair enough. So that sounds like a good solution there, Warren. I believe that's that would work out okay. But yeah, it just for my own peace of mind here. So are the washrooms down by the baseball diamonds, are they open at all at this time?
They're not right now. Typically, they're open for use through the spring, summer season and into the fall when we have the lacrosse and the pickleball and the sports on the fields going. So we always close them every winter anyways. And typically, baseball would be starting up, softball would be starting up by now, so they would be opening up. But because we don't have any of those bookings in that area, the use has been really low in that area period. So those ones they still remain closed at this time.
What would be the chances of opening up 2 stalls, one on each side of that building, opening up those type of thing, and then just having the limited ones at the main one down by the play park?
Yeah, that's another option. I believe there's 2 stalls and 2 urinals in the men's and 3 stalls in the women's. Again, the lower traffic areas, so likelihood of multiple people using it at the same time is probably lower. So that's another option that we could look at, is to opening those ones and then opening the 3 universals in the beach washroom.
Right, and maybe the thought is on those ones down there, Warren, if we actually just put signage, there is a urinal and a toilet in the, like say the guy side anyways, what about if we just put a sign up on the door that says only 1 person at a time?
Yeah, I mean, we can put signage and then it's just up to the people, some onus has to be put on the public as well. We can only do so much and manage so much. So certainly can put signage there. It might lead to an issue with somebody that's in the washroom and someone else comes in to use it. It might lead to an issue with that we'd have to manage. But other than that, it might work.
I see, okay.
Yeah, I would think with, especially if people are in stalls or whatnot, you don't know by the time you get in there and, and do we open the kin hut? That's had some questions for Kiva to pose to her. I thought if we're serving the public as best right now as we think we are, and I guess going forward, is this something that we want to make any kind of recommendation from the committee? Just cognizant of the debate we're having, and do we, I know Adam has one thought on this, and Doug, you have the other, and Warren does, and I do, and that's what we're here for, right? Is to try to provide some, some foresight to your compatriots there on council.
My initial thoughts around that, just seeing that there's 4 of us on this conversation, is that unless we have a consensus on an item, that we don't make any changes, that we stick with what we're doing until we can agree that there's changes. So if we can't come together on a washroom idea, then I think it should be maintained the way it is.
And maybe and then maybe that's just a question that I put to the CAO and just say, do you have any thoughts on this matter, just from an administration side, just of the management side that we are entitled to do. So.
And maybe to amend that anyway slightly, just to say, and have a look at reducing the washroom cleanings at Foster and Springwood. Would you agree with that, Adam?
Yeah, I think if the washrooms aren't being utilized as heavily there, then to redeploy those resources of the cleanings to the ones that are being used, I think makes a whole lot of sense. If that means putting more focus on the community park and they're getting more use, then I think that's the right thing to do.
I think that would be a fair recommendation to make at this time, Guy.
For myself to Kiva, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. I've made notes, and I agree with that. I'm sure Warren would as well.
Somewhat. I still do have a concern slightly about cleaning the facility perhaps just once a day or even twice. As I said, the first person that uses the facility, it's not considered clean after that. So I wouldn't want to go down to less than 2, but I could certainly see us.
Yeah.
Because we
Right,
typically it's
seems-
once unless we get a complaint. So twice would certainly be more frequently. And then maybe perhaps the third time we don't need to do, but we could monitor that and make decisions on it.
And you're speaking, Warren, of the Foster Park in Springwood?
That's right. Yeah.
I think fair enough. If that's what you feel would make you more comfortable, Warren, then I'm good for that. Let's suggest to Kiva that we reduce it down to 2 at Foster and Springwood, and then redeploy as much time as left over to Community Park.
Is there any sense in taking a look at different hours for Foster Park and Springwood, if they're not going to be used as frequently or as cleaned as often as a community park? Should they have the same hours?
It's something we've looked at because of the closures at the Springwood especially. But it's just following the directive from Island Health and the provincial health officer, trying to balance that with the usage. I mean, it's fine to keep a washroom facility open, but if nobody's using it, then is there any benefit to anybody? Yeah.
I can post those questions to Kiva and see what her thoughts and her feelings are on it. And I agree with Warren on, a minimum of 2 times is what we have to have, I think. We clean them once, just regular. So we have to minimally clean them twice. And the reducing of the hours right now is they are closed by way of contract. So I'd have to look in to see what kind of implications that would have to have our mobile supplier come in earlier than what they would to close. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay. Are we good, Amanda? Okay. Great. Thanks very much, gentlemen. Appreciate that. I don't know if we started to go now. We definitely are not going to be closing the gates on the park at any time soon. We still want people to be able to drive there and access the facilities for sure, is what I'm feeling. So if we can go to new business of define and review the public art policy. So what I've done is I've created just sort of a framework that provides some options for us to have some discussion. Might want to more. There we go. Sorry, we're just trying not to get feedback for everybody here. And so if I just threw down some quick ideas over the course of the last couple weeks when I've had time to work on it. I guess my sort of vision of what we would have here is an opportunity to engage the artistic component within our community, and provide opportunities for people to come forward and with proposals for artwork and perhaps sightings and locations and a public trust and stewardship of art being for the community benefit would be ours, and as well as having that policy that would guide how we do this and give staff clear direction on how we accomplish these goals, sort of as a purpose. And then just do we create a committee like of an advisory committee of folks from the community or whoever it may be to take this on and advise and do the choices, and it's just council driven, or and then funding of the program. And I've outlined sort of what is the best practices. I reviewed probably 8 to 10 different public art policies, 2 or 3 from the island and 5 or 6 from the mainland. And typically what happens is 1 to 1.5% of any capital project in-house, there's monies that are set aside for public art. And that creates the budget. And coming out of that is anywhere from about 10% of that we want to make sure that we dedicate towards the maintenance of said art. You know, whether it's a wood sculpture that needs to be sanded down once every 10 years and re-varnished, or if it's just needs pressure washing, or for whatever it may be. You know, we need to make sure that we have that funding resource. Couple exemptions I threw in there that I noticed, that normally equipment and land purchases, which can typically be capital as well, would not be subject to that, the 1 or 1.5%. And infrastructure utility, which again are usually DCC or funded through that program, not to be captured as well. And then the big one is, what do we want to do with private development? Do we want to source money from them as well to ensure that you know, that their building of our city is contributing to this public art as well? It is part of a best management process and practice that I've seen. Most other communities are doing that as part of their policy and or guidelines program. You know, that's a bit of an onerous one. I know, Doug, you were talking earlier about, you know, a community amenity contribution or a community benefit contribution, you know, to the fire hall. It came, you know, and in one of my past lives here, we would have developers come forward and they'll say, hey, we'll add some components to your playground, or we'll put in a fountain bottle filler, or, you know, those sorts of things, and just adding amenities and contributions to the community, stuff that we normally wouldn't budget for, nor, you know, just because it's not within our realm to be able to do that. So this could be another component of something like that, and I know we have to be cognizant that we don't over knock on the developer and ask, or the, you know, to keep contributing. They're paying DCCs, you know, and now we're asking them for more and more. So that's definitely open for discussion. And I think what I hope to get out of this is that an idea of what everybody thinks is the best way to go forward. Are we going to recommend to council that we go down this road and start creating and drafting some guidelines, either for a public art policy, and do we take into consideration some of the things that I pointed out? Open for debate.
I like a lot of your ideas here, Guy. You know, totally pilfered from some other municipality, I'm sure. But that's,
I'll reinvent the wheel here.
Exactly. Plagiarism is good. So
not entirely.
The thing is that it gives you know, a concept of what's happening in other areas. And I totally feel that the timing is right here in Parksville, because as we've had discussions with planning department and building, and we're talking about the DCCs and everything like this, we have a boom going on. What is going to happen after this little hiccup we're having right now will be yet to be determined, but I believe so anyways. And so the thing is that we have a boom coming on. We know that there's even more projects coming through that nobody else even knows about yet. So the thing is that I think it's important that we get this in play right now, because now we can start calling the shots to the developers, and we can start saying, okay, not only do we want better buildings and better developments, but we also want a component of your development to include either donation to an amenity to public arts, or to actually include art on your development project on your own site as well. So it has to be part of the conversation, and it is in other areas type of thing that have a lot of building going on, and you have to strike when the iron's hot. And right now, Parksville's hot, and the thing is, it's going to continue to be so, because real estate wise, we're still actually quite reasonable compared to the rest of British Columbia. So I think the timing is perfect here, Guy. So the thing is, I believe it's important that we get a policy going on. I like your suggestions anyways under each one of them. The thing is that I'm always a little afraid when you talk about another committee, like another public art advisory committee. That always scares the hell out of me, because it's just like another group that we're having to deal with type of thing. And it's like, I'm somewhat comfortable with the fact that in between our staff, all of you and our staff and our planning and everything, not just parks, but planning as well, and engineering and our admin staff, that I think that we're pretty good at coming up with a policy itself, and without having handcuffs put on about having another committee. I'm just saying that we have some people, already, even Councillor Wilson's is big into the arts program as well, type of thing, and she has a lot of good input as well. I'll give her full credit on that. So the thing is that I think we have that, so I'm a little worried about getting outside, because I've dealt with some committees in the past anyways like this, and it's never ending type of thing, and their budgets keep on wanting to climb. So that's my comment.
Okay. Thank you. Adam, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I have seen this type of public art policies in place when I was at FCM. That's what they were doing in Quebec City, is they take 1% as well from their capital project budget. Not that I expect you to have these numbers at your fingertips right now, but any kind of idea of what that might look like for us as a city for our capital projects in a year? What kind of range we'd be looking at?
Yeah, well, I think, I got it here right at my fingertips, but I can't get at it. So Lucky just sent out the updated financial numbers and on all our capital projects. I think, is it somewhere over, 1.5 million, I believe. We start looking at like Hearst and Memorial Avenues and those sorts of things, and and of course these things all still have, from what I understand, in any of the parks and facility ones still have to be approved by council, or which are going to go forward. But I would think that we're probably, that 1% of of $1 million is, that's $10,000 a year that we'd be putting forward to. I don't know the numbers, Adam, right off the top of my head.
Yeah, and I don't expect you to have them right now. Just thinking the high level area. I hadn't had a whole lot of time to go over it all myself, but those are just kind of the thoughts that I'm going around. I see it as being two different sides to it, right? Both the developers and then the city capital side to it. I think it has a lot of merit to it, and this is good reason why we've seen other municipalities have this as their public art policy. It's been successful, and it brings a lot of value to a community too. So I'd like to see it move forward, and I don't know if I have too much right now to offer on thoughts to it, just because I haven't had a great chance to formulate my thoughts around it. So before I'd be able to make any recommendations out of it, I think I'm going to need a little bit more time to mull it over and pick through.
And I guess perhaps what we could do too is if we all concur, is we could come forward with a recommendation to council that we get to direct staff to start creating a public art policy, and then we could maybe come back to us to sort of flesh out some of those ideas of what we'd like to see within the framework of that policy. Might be the best way to go about this. Warren and I were talking, and this is really going to be beneficial to us from being able to have this medium that we're in right now, to be able to flesh out some of these ideas, take them forward to in a recommended form to council to decide upon, and then come back and be able to work together to really capture the essence of some of these things. And I think it'll work really well for us.
I think that's a great starting point, because when I think of things like the selfie bench that we've talked about, and I know there's other ideas that keep popping up, really those are based around public art. Like when you think of a selfie bench, it's not just location to take a selfie, but that's an opportunity to create a picture frame that is an art piece that your city gets known for. So I know there's a lot of public art ideas that are going to be coming forward. So I think getting staff to start putting together would be an appropriate thing for us to be doing at this point.
And it's like when you're asking about the dollar value, even if we were securing, $30,000 or $40,000 a year, this offshore development, or this offshore artwork wouldn't even have been a question here, right? Really, we would have had the funding to do this and put it in place, and maybe something that will be debated later on at council, if we so go this way, is there a committee and a public, and I understand what you're saying, Doug, is there an art advisory committee, or is it left to us to make these choices of which art goes where, and make the actual selections? And I get, more committees is more red tape, more bureaucracy, more stuff to deal with, and you folks definitely don't need to be involved in any more, committees and appointments and everything else, I'm sure. So those are the direction that we seek from a staff perspective on where do we want to focus our energies to draft this. So yeah, that's great.
I think you're right at this time, Guy, that the recommendation that you made anyways, that we set recommendation that the administration staff, flesh out a public art policy that we can put to council. And as you say, we can kind of tweak it before it gets to the council level. But at the same time, I think if we can advise, keep the admin staff anyways, that we have one more little project for them to work on. I'm sure they're expecting it anyways, but I think that would be a good first step.
Yeah, and I concur that it should be administration that does this.
I can't see Amanda right now. She's disappeared. So
she's not happy. No.
Oh, sorry, I see you, Amanda. There you are. You're on it on the screen. Good. Right on.
Good. Okay. So I think that's probably a good idea that we come forward with a recommendation then. And is there anything that we need to do other than just all either concur with that and then get that directive from the resolution from council to go down this road and come back perhaps to the committee to flesh out where we go with this? Because I'll be involved, I imagine, to some point along with Amanda shaking her head. It ain't just gonna end on my shoulders, she says. So I really want to have some solid direction, because it is going to be, off the side of our desks, creating, and applying this specifically now with what's going on. We're focused 3 or 4 hours a day on other topics at hand, right? So.
Yeah, but this, and to be clear, this is, obviously once we get past this, this pandemic situation right now, definitely staff have to work at doing everything just to keep on track of all the health initiatives we have going on. So this is, post-pandemic, let's say that. Okay,
yeah, that's fair. But and like you said though too, Doug, I want to honor the aspect though. I think we should still go forward with our recommendation, and you guys can choose how that timing and everything goes for sure. But we want to strike while the iron's hot too. We want to, as you said, we want to keep focused on this, and if there is willingness, and we want to act swiftly and act with urgency as well. So just a little off the side of the desk here and there can still happen, and we have a lot of talented folks with 3 of them in this room here and with yourselves. So I'm sure we can always apply a little bit on things, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure I just saw Amanda nodding there. Yeah.
Thanks, that was about the talented folks part. So.
Okay, that sounds good.
So if I could ask for somebody to make a recommendation to take to council from the Parks and Open Space Committee, the creation of a public art policy or program, please.
I would like to make that a recommendation.
Yeah, I do support that recommendation.
Excellent, so do I. Warren's gonna give a thumbs up, yeah. That's great, thank you very much. So do we have any other new business that anybody would like to discuss at this time?
I have a couple points, if I could. I had made notes after the last time, if I may, everyone. I have a question on the Jensen Greenway. When the Jensen Greenway was put through, there was a bunch of all the initial plans for the gardenscaping and so forth. And I'm just wondering if there's a plan from the Parks Department. Is there a plan and process? Is that being affected fairly soon, or what does the Jensen Greenway look like from a parks perspective at this time?
It looks barren. It does. Yeah, it does. And Morton and I have had some brief conversations about the Jensen Greenway. I could defer to him a bit about some of the things that are holding us up from carrying on. But Morton, can you add anything at this point?
Yeah, my understanding was there was $20,000 for landscaping for the Jensen Greenway, and we had asked for an irrigation supply. Unfortunately, that was left out of the design between, I believe, the previous engineer that left the project. Just didn't happen. So there was an issue there. There was also no funding for benches or garbage cans for the Jensen Greenway. And so we asked if we could use the $20,000 to fund benches and garbage cans. And unfortunately, the director of finance said that the money meant for landscaping couldn't be used for hardscaping. So we're kind of sitting at a point where I believe there still may be some money there. I don't know if it's been absorbed into last year's budget or not, but we're stuck without irrigation on the Jensen end, and we're stuck without a budget for any of the furnishings for it. So
if it can answer part of the question, if we went for natural planting on the Jensen Greenway, would we be able to eliminate the need for irrigation? Or one of the suggestions that came forward was don't worry about the irrigation in all the backside of the kind of where the trees are and so forth, but maybe some plot irrigation for the entranceway at Jensen and Corefield, to similar plantings as what you've done beside the Canadian Post Office there, which would only require maybe like a 2-zone irrigation system in there, where you plant your primulas and your bedding flowers of that, and then all the rest of the Jensen Greenway all the way down to the community gardens could be planted with native, natural, the salals and all the other good stuff. Would that be a possibility?
So at this point, there's no stub for irrigation, so there's no water supply there. So we'd have to look at getting a water supply to the site to do that kind of thing. That's kind of what we were hoping to do, and with the $20,000. So, and even if you want to put in some naturalized plantings, there's an establishment period where it's more efficient to use irrigation for the establishment than to have a water truck there with a person every couple of days through the summer trying to bring things on. So I guess at this point, we could talk to utilities and see if there's an option of getting a water connection. And if there is, we could look at the cost of that and make a determination going forward how we landscape that section, whether we're naturalizing something or doing like, it's kind of the key area with that, the work that we've done on the roadway with the compass. So do we do a feature bed there? Do we, so if we have water, we've got options. If we don't have water, we don't have a lot of options.
I just want to put in a bit of a comment on that too, just regarding the naturalized plants in that kind of area. We've seen that before up around the Cedar Ridge, the communities where they had it in the parks there, and it created quite an issue for them because it overtakes the area. One of the things that's already been happening to that Jensen Greenway property, or the trail area, even with it being pretty bare, there's been people that are taking branches and setting up little hiding camp out spots. So a couple of times police have had to go down there to get them out of there. And I'd have a serious concern if you start putting in the plants that start providing those kind of hiding spots and making little spots for them to establish more campouts in that area. So I'd have a strong objection to just allowing naturalized plants, because I've seen how that develops, like I say, at Cedar Ridge. Putting in flower beds and perennials, that type of thing near the entranceway, I think would be great. But along the side of it, I don't think it can be that just anything's better than nothing. In that case, I think actually having nothing there is better off.
And I understand what you're saying about the you know, the native plantings in its right location. And but maybe what Doug was implying, something more of a xeriscape water, you know, tolerant species of plants that we don't have to have the intensive irrigation for. And like as Warren was saying, the establishment phase is one part of a new planting as well. And you know, if we do a xeriscape or something along those lines, I think probably what we need to do is do a have to see if we have to do a spending package to, you know, for 2021 to come forward, or maybe we can talk to the director of finance and see if there's something, because definitely the area needs to be finished. I agree. It, especially with the development that's going on right next door here. You know, at the end of this road where we're located now. Maybe there's an opportunity that we engage the community gardeners in there to take some ownership of some of that area. There must be water into the community garden, is there not? Can we go under the path? Can we access? But it goes the whole way, does it not? The Greenway?
Yeah, across Bagshaw. Yeah.
Or is it 2 roads? I do know that I had a conversation with one of the engineering techs about, is there not some works being undertaken on Bagshaw? Is there not some upgrade proposed?
Yes, that's coming up on our agenda on Monday. Anyways, it's the Bagshaw letting the contract for that. Anyways, for the design of that. So yeah, definitely that would take care of the road that's actually splitting the Jensen Greenway. We could definitely take a branch off on that side. I agree with what Guy is saying. There is water going to the community park right now that could definitely be tapped. Whether it's, but the trouble is, I don't know what the supply side is. You know, whether it's big enough to supply irrigation all the way down the Greenway. But definitely on Bagshaw, that's coming up, and so definitely we could take a branch off that, because I believe they're replacing the infrastructure. I think getting rid of the AC pipe out of there as well.
Yeah, just to comment to that, what we had asked for was a pipe along the length of the Greenway, along the asphalt walkway, so that we could tee in for dedicated tree irrigation. So it kind of brings kind of both points to mind, where we kind of have a rougher kind of grass area, but not bush where people could hide things or there's needle issues and things like that. But with trees that had irrigation along there, so that we could ensure if there was a drought, that we could ensure the trees are being watered. And then some sort of a feature garden at the Jensen end. So if we can tackle that problem from the opposite end with an upgrade, then we could establish more trees through the walkway area, and then put in something that's more significant, more appropriate to a downtown area than something that's kind of outlying within the city.
I think that's great, and actually now that I'm thinking about how Bagshaw is, anyways, Bagshaw absolutely splits it, so it could be teed both ways, and we could put an adequate supply line for both sides. And I think that's a great idea. Is maybe let's hang tough, and maybe we want to take a wander up and see Joe to see if there's any way that in his package that he's including infrastructure to allow for irrigation to go up both sides. But that's definitely the way to do it, and that's going to give you. I understand what you're saying about the initial watering for the new plantings, and my thoughts were exactly that, Warren. It was like it would be like salal, like low growing salal, and what's the other Oregon grape. Yeah. So I think maybe if we could at this point just answer my question, if I could leave it to you gentlemen, maybe to just check with, because I'm pretty sure Joe is the one working on this one for Bagshaw, and it would probably be prudent to just go up and just whisper in his ear just a little question. Maybe he's already allowed for it, because he's just so efficient anyhow.
And I did have a bit of as I said, a bit of a conversation with one of his staff had made me aware that they were going to be coming through, and then there might be some opportunities to pick up on what we didn't do from that end. So fortuitous time to bring that up, and we will follow up on that for sure.
Thank you. I have another question if I could. Adam, if you want to take the question, you go ahead for new business.
Yeah, no, feel free. Go ahead, Doug. Thanks.
Okay. I also, the question is on the Trevor Trail connection. is, you know, we had budgeted for that and we had approved it. And I understand everybody's, you know, busy right now. But is there any thought, we had talked anyways before with engineering, to the fact that they've already got the plan already set up from Nurbus Lane at the community park, right by the trailer park there, Golden Dawn. He said that the plans were already set up to go from there all the way to the river. They've already scoped that all out. I was just wondering if there's any plans that we should be moving forward with that, even though we don't have cooperation with the RDN at the river site, because they were saying that if we put through our portion through it, we could actually go all the way from Nurbus Lane to the community park, all the way right through to the Englishman River, because we have already acquired all the properties necessary, and engineering had already identified the artifact sites and that type of thing. And so the thoughts were, if we built that section of it and then put a little, you know, a bench or a picnic table at the end of it down by the Englishman River, and then when RDN finally get their act together, if that ever happens, the thing is that then we can make the over the river crossing type of thing if we can. I know our RDN people, Councillor Fraz and our mayor anyways, are working with the RDN, and they're trying to light a little fire under them to say, you know, we got to get going on this. And the other thing that I'll mention is that the West River Trail Connection, the funding is available that we have in the gas tax anyways. The West River Trail qualifies for that. So as far as budgets go, we do have the money. Lucky has confirmed that that is appropriate use of the gas tax refund money. And so I'm just saying, if we got the money there type of thing, can we start making something happening on this? Because we keep on talking about it, but there's, and now the latest thing that's been thrown against us, well, it's not proceeding because the RDN hasn't done their bit. What I'm suggesting is maybe we don't have to wait for them at this particular time. Maybe we can do our part of it. It's all on our property, and then we'll just connect with over the river crossing later.
And Joe and I did go meet with the RDN and the province, so the Ministry of Modi of Transportation and Infrastructure, and some of the hang-ups at that time during our discussions that we had. I'm not privy to conversations that Adam and the mayor may have had with RDN. The conversation we had at that time was where the road comes out of San Periel. I'm not sure, is that how it's pronounced?
Plummer Road, yeah.
Yeah, Plummer Road, that's right. It's partially, part of Plummer Road is already on private property, I believe. There's the expansion. This is what and this was about 3-4 weeks ago, we went and had this meeting at the RDN offices, and there's not enough room to create this, without putting a new river crossing itself for pedestrians or cycling traffic of that nature, something like that. To make it all come together, that was the hookup, was the bridge, and on the other side the switchback that would have to be created to funnel people down off of 19A down towards Plummer, and there's that steep drop off. It's so tight in there. They are looking, from what I understood, the ministry was looking at sort of that pinball chute that they've got that comes out of the general store area there off Resort Way, and how they're apparently going to be trying to realign all this as well. And so it is on their radar. It's not high on their radar, I don't think, to try to accommodate somehow to get this connection that we're proposing and we have forever. But we can definitely go and talk with Joe. I had a bit of open conversations with him. I know some money is on the books to do this. I'm not up to speed. Perhaps Warren is more on where this trail connectivity could actually take place, how we can get to the estuary or to the river. But we can definitely look into that, because we want to, like you say, strike when the iron's hot on some of this stuff. And the old philosophy, build it and they will come. If we build our end and stub it up, maybe Warren has something here.
It has been a while since I've heard too much about it. My understanding was that we were waiting on Nature's Trust with our section from Nervous to Mills, where it was a little close, and getting a trade of property, I believe. That's the last I heard, which was probably about a year ago, that Nature's Trust was the holdup for the section that's within the city of Parksville.
Thanks, Warren. I know that from the mayor's point of view, and we had discussions anyways, is what we had talked about is that there will be an expropriation of the land going parallel to the highway. It's a farm that's in there right now, and it's a very large farm that's not used for farming, quite frankly. And so there was some talk about expropriation of the land and or purchase of an easement through that piece of property going all the way up to the log cabin store, and at the same time fixing the pinball lane that's up there by Moti would have to be working on that. But as far as the RDN goes, and quite frankly, Ed's comment was, we're not getting any money from the RDN for any parks, and you may have heard us at the last council meeting lamenting the fact that Parksville has not received any money out of any RDN parks, and this would be a good time for them to cough up some money to actually purchase the necessary lands to get all the way up to the log cabin store. And at least we're getting some of the park funds back that we've been dedicating to the RDN. Ed was mentioning he hasn't found any expenditures for Parksville. I believe, Adam, you might be close to that. Like for 18 years, we haven't received anything. So it's about time that we're saying, okay, RDN, you can buy that land there, fix the pinball lane up there at the same time with Moti. But in the meantime, we're not going to wait for you. We're going to be already on the other side of the river, and we're just going to, then you guys are going to have to cough up the money to do it. So that's kind of where the conversation goes. I know Ed was pretty adamant that he was going to get money out of them. And so I'm sure they're going to keep the pressure on from the Parksville to RDN level. And I think it's just wise, maybe to, just check to see what's left, as Warren says, whether that little issue with the Nature Trust has been taken care of or not. Thank you.
And Doug, just to answer your question there about how long it's been, not 18 years, it's something like 60 something years we've been with the RDN paying into their parks.
Yeah. Yes. Oh. So we have contributed a fair amount into that RDN Parks fund and not received anything back. So we have a right to start demanding something here. And this is probably the best time to do it because, quite frankly, we have money in the gas tax and we're just dying to spend it.
Okay, so what we'll do is and I can connect back with Joe on that one as well and see. We'll get this fired up and see where we're at. And yeah, and Warren and I, I'm sure, can report back in on where that's at. Any hiccups or holdups, or do you have anything to add, Warren?
Just to go back to the bag shop grade briefly, I'd also like to request if we could, beyond the landscape irrigation upgrade, is to ask for furniture to be part of that budget for the Greenway, so we can get benches and garbage cans onto that space.
I definitely think a garbage can is absolutely necessary in that area. I've already noticed there's lots of garbage that gets thrown off to the side, particularly dog waste in their bags. There's nowhere to dispose of it, and people don't want to hang on to that for however far between garbage cans. So definitely a garbage can.
And I think that might be furnishing and stuff like that. However we go about to find that money, but we definitely need to provide those services. And I know at some point, I don't know if Kiva mentioned to both of you or not, Adam and Doug, but she may have to Doug about garbage cans and the allocation of services as he laughs. And I think and Warren and I have had this discussion, is at some point we would really love to have an open conversation and get some feedback from you gentlemen about park services and service levels and how we vision this going forward in the community, respecting, and taking into account that community park is as important as Retegno, as the Maple Glen Greenway, or any of them, from a parks perspective. But how do we manage this? And every resources and asset management are getting leaner to get to our assets every year. We have to be cognizant and frugal. And so I know we're going to have that discussion at one point as well. I really want to have that. And it'll probably take up a couple committee meetings, I'm sure, about what do we bring forward and how do we recommend to council. Like the stuff that we do along Highway 19A, in front of commercial properties and that have property management companies, and I don't want to get into it now too much. It was my first eyes that I laid on the community when I came in, and Warren took me around in one of the beginning weeks, and we looked, and I'm like, we edged the whole sidewalk all the way down this, yet we're only mowing some of our parks once every I'm going, and we can't put a garbage can down here. So I was kind of and I'm looking forward to have a really robust conversation about that. So that's not to say that we can't get a garbage can in on Jensen in our downtown core. We need to be cognizant of the fact that, every time we add, and that's a conversation Warren and I have had, every time we add assets to our inventory from parks perspective or facilities or just the downtown, however it is, we need to make sure that we're getting funding in place to look after that and to make sure that we can uphold our amenities and our assets and not come back all of a sudden to council and go, wow, we forgot about this one, we need an extra 60 grand to look at, something's dilapidated and falling apart. We need to make sure that we've got, that in place at the time of conception of when we go forward. So that, the Jensen Greenway it should have been completed. Those things, like Warren said, we should have had water, and we should have been able to make that a gem that it is, and keep that connectivity in the community. So
just my comment. Just my comments. What the guy on that is, I think probably the best time is that Parks puts through a budget line item we're coming up to our budget approvals anyways, and it was supposed to be this week, but anyways, it's been delayed a couple of weeks here. The thing is that I, quite frankly, after going through the budget process last year, I was amazed that Parks had very little requests, very little asks for any extra funding. But now I'm hearing that you have like a waiting list of 19 on the garbage cans before my neighbors at the end of Seaway Drive here could even be considered. And I'm going to go, whoa, that's a lot of pending garbage cans here. And why haven't we heard about this? And why haven't they been saying, hey, council, you got to allocate some money to this? Because we need to know that to allocate it. And it's a very fair request, not just the garbage cans, but as you say, Guy, about the you're doing a great job all along 19A, and then you want to do more. And the thing is that I think that's important that you say to council, and if it means more resources or more staff, I think we need to hear that. I was surprised that you didn't ask for more staff, quite frankly. But honestly, Earl Greer's not here, so I can say that.
I can't speak for what took place in the past. I'd like your attitude to strike while the iron's hot. This year, the budget, we can't put anything else into the budget at this point, I've been told. So I wasn't part of that process, but I'm still getting up to speed for the most part. I like for you saying you're surprised there wasn't more requests coming in for parks. Well, next year there will be. So we'll definitely have a wholehearted plan coming forward, and that's where we want to get you put eyes on this business case, and we'll figure that out for next week, and what goes into the development of these and how we can. They're onerous. It's a lot, but it's doing our due diligence, and it's providing the senior management team the necessary to make proper decisions on what to bring forward to council as a package. And it's a good way to do it, but it's something that we shouldn't have to do it for everything. Pending if there's, I don't know, I haven't really been informed yet if there's a limit, maybe Amanda knows, if there's at some point where we have to do one of these business cases. But if we're able to come forward and put in requests to council and say, we need some discretionary spending here. We need to have the access to some money so we can make these kind of decisions that are good for the community and not have to do a spending package for next year. To be able to go, hey, we need to make a selfie bench, and does it come out of council contingency, or we need 3 more garbage cans, or we need to beautify a little piece of land. We need to, so that's some of the stuff that I hope we'll see some traction on, and some things for you to deliberate next year for council, because we'll ask for some money for sure. And whether that's people or not, I've already thrown that around, and yeah. So thank you.
We got a couple of years left, so it should be good.
I hope we have some stability, really, to be honest.
Yeah,
and go forward for a while and build some traction. So
I hear you.
good. Well, if there's nothing else from anybody, I think we've probably hit, unless there's any other new business from anyone.
That's
Seeing
it.
none? Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Adam, you're okay? Look at you, Mr. Tech guy. He's got the background, thumbs ups, and everything else going on. Well, thank you very much again once for your time, everyone, as we struggle through with these non-impersonal meetings, which are working, but it's far better, I think, to be able to look each other in the eye across the room and have good, wholehearted discussions. So let's hope we get to that again sooner than later. And thank you for your time, and we'll see you on Monday, our next council meeting, I guess. So,
Right, we will.
Great. Thank you very much.
all right,
Thanks
guys.
very much, everybody.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.